Hello, human peoples. You're listening to the podcast network of Gamefully Unemployed. To support us and gain access to great exclusive podcasts like Fox Mulder is a Maniac, Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Star Trek The Next Futurama, and our latest show, Spiel Boys, head over to patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. We do game streaming, movie nights with our patrons every Friday night, and you can even commission your own podcast about anything you want. Literally anything, within reason, and we have to do it. You are quite frankly out of excuses not to go visit patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. That's patreon.com/GAMEFULLY unemployed, which is spelled like it sounds.
Getting back into movie watching.
Woo!
Hey, everybody.
Hello, everyone.
My name is David Bell.
My name isn't. It's Tom Ryman.
And we just watched Belladonna of Sadness.
Boy, did we. Title sort of reflects how I feel.
All right, so first of all, big thanks to MindFreak555. They're our Patreon producer who asked us to watch this. This is a 1973 animated, Japanese animated art film. It is well reviewed.
I think it's well reviewed as a piece of art.
Yeah.
I can see that. It's super experimental, it's real psychedelic, it mixes in a lot of different types of art styles and animation. And from that standpoint, it's pretty cool from that standpoint.
Yeah. Let's get into this. Yeah, it's a very artsy film.
Yeah.
I would say big old trigger warning for anybody who wants to watch this movie.
Huge trigger warning.
It is a very rapey film.
It is fetishistic in its depiction of sexual violence.
Yes,
now,
and so
we'll get into it, but just up top, I have an interpretation of this film that may be me doing too much work on the film's behalf. But
you might be.
But yeah, it is extremely fetishistic to the point where, like, I was eating lunch and I had to stop because I lost my appetite.
Yeah, that's the thing. All right? So I like art, Tom. I like
Dave,
weird.
Dave, I'm a fan of art as well.
Yeah,
I'm a patron of the arts.
Yeah. I like weird animation. I really liked, I did for Small Beans, we watched Fantastic Planet.
Fantastic Planet, yeah.
I love that shit. I'm a big fan of Aeon Flux, which I would say drew a lot of inspiration in the animation, I would say, from this movie.
100%, yeah.
Yeah, specifically the editing and the character animation.
Mm-hmm.
And so, considering that this was made before all that, I understand why it would get praised.
Yeah, I kept sitting here thinking to myself as I was watching it, like 1973, that's 50 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, it's so, like, watching this movie with that in mind really impressed me in terms of the art styles and animation and, like, just the real experimental choices it makes in terms of how it employs animation. I was like, wow, this is half a century ago. This is very ahead of its time in that regard.
Yeah. As for the actual art behind it, as in, like, the meaning, I am largely unimpressed by this film.
I hated this movie.
Yeah.
let me be clear. I hated this movie.
It gave me the vibes of that boomer 70s, like a band where their lyrics are nonsense, you know? And they're just all very high. And like that, you know, there's that thing about this 70s free love where it feels more like it was just guys trying to fuck.
That's true. And I think this is related to that in a thematic way, that probably thought it was real progressive in 1973.
Right, but it largely just feels like a bunch of guys who wanted to draw tits. Like that.
Oh, yeah.
That was really what it felt like to me.
Oh, yeah.
Is that it felt like it said more about the person making it than anything else, because it's like the jazz music and just any chance to make the character naked, and just on largely meaningless in the end. Which we'll talk about, the ending scene or the ending shot. I was just like, really? All right, calm the fuck down.
I get what it's okay. Let's run through, because I think everything you're saying lines up with kind of how I interpreted the film, which I think is interesting. So maybe there was more intent there than it seems, but I'm still of the mind that like the people making this movie probably thought it was way more progressive than it actually is.
Yeah.
But like real quick, I guess we should probably go through the plot such as it is. Yeah.
So it's about a peasant woman named Jean.
Yeah. And her
husband, Jean.
It's like Jean and Jean, but like
it's Jean and Jeanne,
but the actors pronounce both names the same way.
Yes. And the king, who looks like Frankenstein, Frankenstein.
The king looks like a fucking Nephirite from Mutant Chronicles. Like that's the B-list Warhammer 40K for anybody who doesn't know. That's the game I played instead of what Robert Evans played. But anyway, yeah, like their king looks like an absolute ghoul.
Yeah, and the queen looks like the Snow White queen.
Yeah.
And then their page, who is just a clown.
He's an actual clown man, yes.
Yeah, clown man page.
Clowny clown man.
Clowny clown man. So he wants 10 cows from this newlywed the Jeans. And he's like, I can't have, I don't have cows to give you.
Yeah.
And so then he just rapes her and orders everybody to do so as well.
Well, the queen does that, if you notice.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they basically they have to go to the palace to pay a marriage tax, and they sell their cow to do it. And the king's like, "Yeah, you got to pay me 10 cows." And they're like, "Well, we absolutely don't have that." And the queen's like, "All right, well, everybody gets to assault your wife then."
Yeah, and that's
how the movie starts.
Sequence. Yeah,
and it is a whole sequence.
And so then the husband just like leaves. He like freaks out and leaves.
Well, no, he is thrown out of the palace.
He's thrown out, right. He's thrown out.
Real quick, just to press pause, the movie displays this in a, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not non-literal. It's, not impressionistic. But like
they do it in a very interesting animation,
right? They convey the idea of her being attacked in a way that's more why can't I find my words today? It's an interesting way that they depict it. They don't depict like the literal act of it so much as like the impression and the feeling,
the
of
emotional act of it.
Yeah,
almost.
There's a word. It's not allegorical, but my vocabulary is failing me.
They still definitely include.
Tits. Yes, they definitely took the time to draw tits. Yeah. Even though they're giving you here's like the mood of this happening to somebody, but we're still going to make sure we draw as many boobs as we can.
Yeah. And also the animation in this, I gotta say, some of it was really good and some of it felt like they were like running out of time. Cause like the first part, it's a lot of just like still images that they scroll over.
Yes.
And some of it I was just like, come on, I could do this. Like, do something better. And then later they do some really good animation. So like, but the first half I was like, come on guys. Like animate something. You're an animation.
It's a lot of like filming still images while narrators explain to us what's happening. And like it's like it's quasi musical sometimes because there'll be song lyrics that like move the story forward anyway, so
and then again, lots of jazzy music.
It's nonstop. Like
the sexual assault is set to like jazzy 70s music, and
jazzy, psychedelic jam music. It's crazy.
again, it feels to me largely lazy. Like it feels like they just got real high and they're like, this is cool, right?
It's very,
and it's like,
yeah, it is very psychedelic.
Yeah. It's like a stereotype of
Yes.
a psychedelic 70s artsy movie. This is definitely the type of movie you're supposed to like project on your wall while having like a party. You know, like it's not to actually sit down and watch in any sort of sober state.
I would not recommend showing this at a party, but yeah, I know what you're saying.
You know what I mean.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, this is not a movie you sit down and watch. This is a movie you have on while you're high. And so, like, for that reason, sitting and just watching it, like, I watched it, I forget when I watched it, but I was definitely sober.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like, man, this is the longest 90-minute movie ever.
88 minutes. So, it was a 3-hour 88 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. So then she seems like she shamed her husband or something. She comes home.
Oh yeah,
and her husband is
I really want to talk about that. But yeah, let's for sure.
Yeah, she's like sad that her husband's sad.
Yes, and he almost strangles her to death.
Yeah.
And then he runs out of the house, and she has to sit there in shame. And that's a real, I think anyway, in the way I interpreted the film, it's a real important aspect of it. And then this penis demon appears to her.
Like the condom demon.
Fucking Dick Satan.
So Dick Satan shows up and just assaults her some more. And I was like, do we really need more of this?
Yeah.
And like, so he's like a weird little red penis orc. He comes out. I think he's fabric. He's supposed to be fabric.
Well, he keeps transforming from like extremely phallic into like representing, I want to say, like menstrual blood. So he kind of looks like a tampon a lot. Like it's like it feels gross to talk about it. I really feel uncomfortable. But like the movie's very fetishistic in its sexual violence. Yeah.
It should be named I Really Feel Uncomfortable.
I really feel like I literally I was hungry and I sat down with some food and I could not eat while I was watching this movie. It's how uncomfortable it made me.
So he like the little red penis like
the fucking like, Dick Satan, yeah.
Dick Satan like goes all up on her body. And she talks about wanting to like save her husband or something.
She basically makes a pact with him to like make things right.
Yes, it doesn't really work out the first time. There's like a trial run. So she makes a pact with it. And then there's the ink blob cloud, which I think is also just the penis, which also has to assault her to jazz music.
Yeah.
The first half of this, like I would say it does get better in the second half,
kind of,
but the first half is just various animations assaulting this woman.
Yeah, it's deeply unpleasant.
Yeah, and so then they talk about war, and then the war stops. The war takes like 2 seconds.
Yeah, but they're gone. The point is they're okay. So she makes a pact with the little cock Satan, who's just tiny now. But he gets bigger and he gets more and more engorged as the movie progresses. So at first, like things are all right. Like he transforms her husband into a money. Like he becomes the tax collector for the village. So now like they're in a position of esteem. And then he goes away to war.
And then she's like all powerful.
Yeah, because she becomes a moneylender.
Yes, and then but that doesn't last long. The little clown man tries to assassinate her.
Yeah, when they get back from the war,
which conveniently makes her naked again.
Yeah. When they get back from the war, well, first her husband gets his hand cut off because he can't raise enough money from the village. So it's like basically the story is she makes this pact with this demon who keeps giving her like half measures. Like he makes her and her husband like esteemed positions in the village, but the villagers sort of distrust them now. And now that they're in this position of power, like if they don't come up with the money for the king chops her husband's hand off, which happens. Then she goes to like, she gets even more Satan powers and has this rockin' like Doctor Strange cloak, this green cloak. And she goes into a village to get some money from another money lender to help cover the money that her husband wasn't able to collect from the village. And that fixes that. But she has to like keep making more and more deals with Cock Satan, It's a typical cock Satan bargain where they give you, it's like monkey's paw. They give you half measures until you get further and further in until you're all the way in.
Right. So Clown Man tries to assassinate her. She runs away. Everybody chases her out. Mm-hmm. She becomes naked again.
Yeah.
She is dying in like the snow. And this is where the animation starts actually getting better, too.
It starts getting real cool here. Yeah, that's true.
It really feels like they were like, oh, shit, we forgot to make the first part of the movie. Well, let's do that real quick. And so, like, it starts actually getting good. She runs into Satan again, who is now, like, he looks like he looks like a syrup bottle. Like, he's just, like, this big phallic. He's got, like, the helmet hair.
If you've seen the Aqua Teen episode of Mr. Wongburger, it's like, who's getting their dick ripped off tonight? He just looks like that character. He's just clearly a penis with a face. Like, his chest hair is like a forest of pubes. Like, he is just a dick.
He's just a big dick.
A huge dick.
She makes another deal with him.
Yes.
Now she actually has what I think is consensual sex with Satan.
Right. She finally stops because she keeps, dipping her toes into the Satan deal to, like, try to improve her life. But then, everything is blown up in her face. Her husband's a useless drunk who won't help her from this mob. They run her out into the woods where she's gonna die. And yeah, it's like the witch where she's like finally like, okay, fuck it, fine. I'll be Satan's bride now.
Yes, they have sex and there's some cool animation, but then there's like crazy sex animation that was like, this is cool. And then it devolves into like the most stereotypical 70s animation you can get, where it's just like, it looks like The Simpsons spoofing this, where it just starts flashing images of like at one point it flashes a golfer, like just a golfer.
Big Ben.
Big Ben,
she
a cigar, a film director playing cards.
She fucks Satan so hard that she sees the future.
Yes.
Like people dancing in bell bottoms.
Yeah, and it's just like,
but I think that's part of, we'll get to it in a second, but like I think that still has some intent in terms of how it relates to the theme, at least what I believe the movie is supposed to be about.
I'm not saying this movie doesn't have intent. It's more of just like, I don't think it's very complex ultimately.
No, it's pretty bad.
Yeah.
I think this is a bad movie that I hated.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Again, there's a lot of great visual stuff. It's just storytelling. We haven't even gotten
to the orgy where a man shoots rabbits out of his butthole.
Yeah. So we're getting there.
And a guy's dick turns into a giraffe.
Yes, the dick giraffe.
Dick giraffe.
She shows back up to the village, and it comes in the form of a Black Death, right? And that was cool looking. There's like goo
the Black
animation.
Plague is cool. Yeah, that whole scene was cool. She doesn't show back up in the village. She's living in the forest.
Right. No, you're right.
It's just a plague descends on the village. So her husband gets the plague, her drunk, useless husband. So they throw him into a body ditch, and she finds him, and she cures him using medicine.
Poison. Yeah, a poison that's now medicine.
Well, she uses Belladonna, hence the title of the film, to make medicine, basically.
Right.
Because like a lot of what her journey, god damn it, I hated even saying that about this film, but like a lot of what her plight represents is enlightenment.
Right.
So like she has medicine and uses it, and so he comes back to the village cured, and everybody's like, she's a fucking witch.
Right. But they like her now.
Because she cures the plague, so the villagers start to go out to the forest to see her one by one to get cured of the plague, and also to like she teaches them how to have sex without having kids.
Right.
Like she's like, oh no, you can do mouth stuff and butt stuff and hand stuff. Like you don't need to, and that's when we get like this psychedelic like 6.5 minute orgy scene that is probably the most fun that the movie ever gets, because it's just so weird.
For sure. Yeah, it's just like, giraffe genitals.
Like a lady's fucking vagina turns into an elephant's mouth. Again, like we said, a guy shoots rabbits out of his butthole.
Yeah, sex stuff.
Typical sex stuff, yeah.
And so everybody's dancing, and then Clown Man comes back, and again he has big clown hair and rosy cheeks, like he's
clowny clown man.
He's clowny clown.
He's
man.
clowny clown man. He's a little porcelain doll. Bless his little heart. His pink little cheeks.
And he's like, I'm in love with the queen.
Yeah.
And I want a way to be with the queen. So she gives him a potion to like brainwash her into sex, which is like, all right. That's fucked up.
Yeah. It is. It's her vengeance,
she gives
I
him
guess.
Roofies.
Yeah.
But it's
basically
it's real eye for an eye, where it's like, I was assaulted, so I'm gonna make her get assaulted too.
Yeah. And then Ghoul King Skeleton Head stabs them both to death.
Yeah, walks in on them having the sex, which again, like, sure, and stabs them, and then
that piece of animation was actually really cool.
Yes, when it pulls out and the knife is in
you see the knife, and then his hand sort of appears on the hilt. It was really cool.
Yeah, there's some great animation in this.
Yeah.
And then the king is like, all right, well, we're gonna burn this witch now. And so they do this long sequence of getting her. Oh wait, her husband has to die.
Yeah,
right?
The king basically sends her husband out to her to convince her to come to the palace under the guise that like the king is like likes her now and wants her help to like spread the cure, to like, you know, manufacture the cure basically, so they can spread the cure throughout the whole kingdom and get rid of the plague. So he tells her husband, hey, we want her to like come to the palace and everything will be forgiven and she can have land and be a noble. We just want her expertise in helping get rid of this plague. But he's lying.
He's a liar. He's Frankenstein. Yeah.
He's fucking Frankenstein bonehead, man. He looks like a Nephirite from Mutant Chronicles. Yep. Look it up. So her husband goes out there, convinces her to come have an audience with the king, and the king's like offering her all this shit, like land and stuff. She's like, no, I don't want any of that. And so the king is like, well, what do you want? And she's like, I want it all. She says, I want the world, basically. I want the whole world. And he's like, ha, it was a lie. I'm going to burn you now. But he was going to burn her anyway? I don't know.
So they burn her at the stake.
Yeah.
Everybody is watching, and their faces turn into her.
I
think the implication is that she is like bewitching them all. She's spreading to them.
Kind of, sort of. There's something you skipped in the middle there. They take her to be burned at the stake, and when they light the fire, her husband, for the first and only time in the entire movie, grows a pair, runs up, grabs the torch from the pyre, and throws it at the king. He finally says, "Damn this!"
Right, he's finally like, maybe I should defend my wife.
Maybe I should defend my wife. Yeah, throws a torch at the king, and he gets stabbed 9,000 times and dies.
Yeah, he sure does.
And then the rest of the villagers try to turn against the king, and they're held back by his guards.
Right.
Because they were about ready to rip his ghoulish little body apart. And then she burns. And as she burns, all of the people in the crowd, their faces turn to her face, which has both a literal and a thematic interpretation, I think. Because earlier in the movie, the king's like priest does tell him, well, if you burn a witch before purifying her soul, if you burn a witch while her soul still belongs to Satan, then the evil will just spread to everybody around it. But what I think that means thematically is like enlightenment is spreading to the people around her, right? Because they're all kind of seeing that this is bullshit.
Yes. I think so.
The old archaic ways and these real grim fundamentalist rules and repression, they're all kind of seeing it's bullshit. So I think, and now my version of the movie cut off in the middle of that. Like the version I rented,
really?
The version I rented on Amazon stops very abruptly, so I had to look up. There was like maybe 1 or 2 minutes left of the.
So what happens is a caption comes up that says literally something like, a while later.
Mhm.
Like it's like a vague and sometime later, and they cut to that painting of they cut to the French Revolution.
Yeah.
And like someone else's art of it, and then that famous painting, and they zoom in, and like the faces of the people is her face, and then it ends, and so it's like, and then it was the French Revolution later. She did, and
Yeah.
that's what felt really tacked on.
Yeah.
Was like it felt like at the end someone was like, hey, you might want to like make it mean something.
Yeah,
And they were
maybe
like,
your movie
"Oh."
should have a point, so it's not just like fetishizing sexual violence.
Right, and it really feels like fucking the French, like,
Well-
it had nothing to do with much of it except for, I guess, the idea of people rising up.
Yes, yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's very like some super high 19-year-old being like, this is deep. But yeah,
Right.
so it is. They are making the like. I went and looked up the plot online so I could see what I had missed when my version cut off. So I did read about the French Revolution stuff.
Yeah.
So I think it is making the connection of repression and freedom and enlightenment, and that's what this was about.
Right. And
Yeah,
it's just, boy, there are better ways to do this.
there are a
For
lot
example,
better ways. Yeah.
I know, obviously this came much later, but a movie like The Witch, where it's like, oh, what a much more elegant way to do something like this without, like, having to show tits all the time,
Mhm.
which, nothing wrong with tits, but
No.
you know what I mean, where it was, like, clearly, like, it's fetishistic,
Yes.
where it doesn't feel like, yeah, it's supposed to be
It's
kind of a story
gratuitous.
about empowerment, but it just really feels like it was told through the lens of a dude.
100%. Yeah,
yeah.
I looked up the personnel of this film, and yeah, male director.
Yeah, it just feels like it's through that lens, and so it just feels exploitative, not
Very
in a
much
way
so. Very
that
much
was,
so.
yeah, not in a way that was intentional. That was more like, we're clearly learning something about this person. So, but it is the same basic idea as something like The Witch, which is that if a society is, putting all these puritanical rules on women,
Mhm.
then sometimes you got to turn to Satan for actual liberation. Is more or less the idea, which is that the church has created this situation where it's like, you know what, fuck you guys.
Well, it is not even that. It's what Satan, quote unquote, represents is empowerment. So it's like
yes.
it's commenting on how the idea of that came from a way to try to control women, and specifically control women's sexuality.
Right. But the problem is she's still got to fuck Satan. And Satan
Exactly.
is still
Yeah. The problem is it's
creeping
still a
on her.
gigantic, veiny cock Satan. Like, it's like, okay. Like,
Yeah.
But
Again,
yeah.
going back to The Witch, it's like she doesn't have to fuck the goat,
No.
Like it feels again like that 70s free love where it's like, yeah, come on, stick it to the man by sticking it to me, where it just feels like guys who want to get laid still is at the heart of this. It reminds me of something like Zardoz.
yes. Yeah.
Where Zardoz is fun to make fun of because it's a lot campier, but it's ultimately another movie where it's like, this sure is very rapey and doesn't really mean that much.
Yeah, it's another movie that's very uncomfortable to watch.
Yeah,
even though there's funny moments, like in this movie where there's a guy who shoots rabbits out of his butthole.
That's
funny.
But it's got that real boomer enlightenment vibe.
Yeah,
to it.
so there's moments of this movie that I was like, oh, okay, I think you might have done this by accident, but all right. Like having, obviously the shame element and having Satan be a literal dick is, that is saying something about trauma, right? So it's like the shame of it. You feel like sex is evil now.
Yeah, there was definitely a trauma theme throughout.
Yeah, so that plays into the idea of repression and how a lot of these institutions are designed, at least in part, to control women's sexuality, which is why this is why I think, especially in the beginning, they were sort of connecting tiny penis Satan to both sex and like menstruation. So it's like, oh, it's I hate the just the entirety of being a woman right now, as I feel ashamed of because of what has happened to me. But so like there's an element of that through the movie. So I was like, oh, okay, so I can give the movie credit for at least having that much thought behind it. Again, like I said at the top, I may be doing too much of the film's work for it, but I really don't think so. Like it seems...
No, I do think that's all themes throughout. It's just that it doesn't get much more complex.
No, it's not terribly complex. It's unnecessarily gratuitous, and we keep saying fetishistic because it really... I mean, if I can't recommend this movie.
No, I wouldn't recommend this movie.
I absolutely would not recommend this movie, but if you are interested and if you feel like watching it, you will. We are not being hyperbolic when we're calling it fetishistic. You will see that we are right on the money.
Here's the value I got from this movie was seeing more of the roots of some ideas and animations that I do like.
Yeah.
Because I really do think the character design is not exact, but like the way the faces are drawn and stuff feel very Eon Flux.
Yeah, for sure.
There's, the themes, again, it's like for the time this was made, that is interesting that they did this theme. It's been done much better now.
Yeah.
So it's
done a little more thoughtfully, not gratuitously. Like again, The Witch.
Yeah, like in terms of film history, it's interesting in that regard. Because it's got, I don't know, it seems to get a lot of praise. It was probably significant at the time it came out. But yeah, generally speaking, it's not a, like the animation is neat, but it's not a pleasant movie to sit and watch.
It is a deeply unpleasant movie.
Yeah, and it feels like all the points that they make, it's kind of the same reason, and this is controversial, but I didn't like The Lobster. And the reason I didn't like The Lobster was it felt like the point of the movie was something I got in the first half hour, and then I had to watch the whole movie. And it just kept repeating that. Mm-hmm. And this feels similar, where it's like, yeah, I get it.
I got it. I got it. Yeah.
Like I found myself scrolling, like almost fast forwarding through this movie and constantly checking to see how long is this movie, because it's just once it's like, okay, I see what you're doing, oh good, there's still another like hour.
Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of repetition in it, not even just repeating the theme, but like repeated animation, repeated music. There's a lot of repetition in it, so it's really, in addition to being
and
like
it's just stretched out,
right? In addition to the
sequences,
in addition to the content being unpleasant, like the experience of watching it is unpleasant because it really feels like your time dilates while you're watching it. It should have been a short film.
Yeah. It should have been 40 minutes.
It's very experimental, very student film art, like where you're, isn't to say there isn't talent behind the art. No, for sure.
Great animation.
As a piece of art, I see merit and value in it, for sure. Just in terms of the animation, the techniques, the different things that they do, there's some cool, innovative stuff in it.
As a piece of visual art.
Yes, a piece of visual art, yes.
Yes. In terms, again, of the message itself, it's just, it didn't need to be this long for this message. It didn't need to be this gratuitous. It's weird to be like, it makes me feel old to be like, oh, it's too much nudity. But like, it's not that I'm like, clutching my pearls. It just really feels like, okay, I didn't want to learn about your fetish, man. Like this, it just feels like, if I watched this with the person who made it, I would feel very uncomfortable being near that.
I would be staring at him the entire time.
Yeah, I'd be like, okay, man.
You feeling all right, buddy? You want to?
Yeah.
Anything you want to talk about?
Yeah, it's like at a certain point, it's like, I don't know, man, just make a porn.
Honestly, yeah, like I saw a lot of discussion about this film calling it like an erotic movie, and I'm like, boy.
Yeah, it's just like a kid drawing boobs and dicks sometimes, and it's like,
yeah.
All right. Yeah.
I hated this movie.
Right. And what's interesting is, again, I think of something like Fantastic Planet or Aeon Flux, and what is the difference? Because Aeon Flux definitely has fetishes on display, right?
For sure. Aeon Flux is very sexual.
Yeah. Fantastic Planet definitely has that 70s, although when was Fantastic Planet made?
I think 70s.
It better be. Because it definitely has
if it knows what's good for it, it better be the fucking 70s.
In 1973.
Nice.
It definitely has that full display of 70s bullshit, right? And long drawn out sequences. And so the question is, what's the difference between the two? And the difference between the two for me is one, plot. Aeon Flux uses the surreal nature of their art to also push like weird sci-fi ideas, and to actually, like, when it's not like just the shorts that they did for Liquid Television, there's actually like a plot. And Fantastic Planet also technically has a plot, albeit a weirder one. That one also has a bunch of boobs and stuff, but it's also, the level of exploitation in it, the tone is very important. And also just like, is it a world that I want to exist in? Is part of it, is like, is the art inviting in a way that I can sit there for a movie length and exist in it? And this just not as much, not nearly as much, you know? Mm-hmm. This one's more abrasive. And then ultimately the fact that the message itself is rather simplistic, or not even simplistic, but like, obvious? Is the word obvious?
It's both.
Yeah, and then it just doesn't feel like the message is in the right hands.
It's very inelegant too. Like, it's just. Oof.
So ultimately, I'm just like, I'd rather watch another weird, crazy, surreal film.
Yeah, it's a real bloody axe of a film.
Yeah. Again, there's definitely parts where I was like, oh, cool animation.
Yeah. No, there's merit to it. It's just, as a movie, I hate it.
Yeah.
I'm never going to watch this again. I will actively prevent people from watching this movie. Just be, are you sure? Are you sure you want to watch this movie?
Right, because you're not going to feel
pleasant.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, like, I guess there's always the question of, like, well, art's not supposed to be pleasant. This is a work of art. And again, it's like,
art doesn't have to be pleasant. That's I think, right?
Yeah. Art doesn't have to be pleasant.
Yeah.
It's just that in this case, I didn't really. Again, going back to the start, I just wasn't particularly impressed by the art. Like, there's definitely some good animated sequences, but in general, like, I watch depressing movies all the time.
Sure.
Because I find the execution really interesting or something like that. This doesn't feel like the actual execution was interesting enough to merit how much of a bummer it was. I guess that's what it comes down to.
What it had to say wasn't compelling enough either.
Yes. Yeah.
It just had a very simple, obvious message, employing a lot of gratuitousness, to convey it. With some cool exexecution, but like, it doesn't.
I don't know. It feels very much like a product of its time.
Yeah, it doesn't make comes nowhere near making a strong enough case for itself.
Yeah.
It's like,
I think part of it is also like, how ahead of the artist are you, if that makes sense? Where it's like, I like art where it's like the artist has surprised me in some way, or it feels like I'm not seeing straight through the artist. And in this case, it just, again, it feels so generally obvious that I feel like there was just the constant feeling of like art student, where it's like, oh, you think this is really complex, but I kind of see right through it.
Yeah.
And I'm just not impressed. I'm not impressed. I'm sorry.
Yep. I'm sitting here folding my arms.
Yeah. Like, and it's not because I'm outraged. It's not because my brain can't handle your crazy message. It's just no. It's again. It's what you realize about people like Marilyn Manson, where it was the idea
door
where
to
parents
door to shock people.
Yeah, where parents were like, Marilyn Manson sucks, and kids were like, oh, you're just outraged by them, and they're like, no, he just sucks. Like we had Alice Cooper,
we had
all
Alice
these
Cooper,
other
and
things.
he's way better at it.
Yeah, it's not that, it's that, and like I guess there's something to be said about when this came out. But now I'm looking at Fantastic Planet came out literally the same year, and totally different message, but I would say better version of art. Like I also think this style of art, this surreal style, because I keep quoting Fantastic Planet because I just saw it recently, and Aeon Flux because I love it, but it doesn't feel like a coincidence that those are both sci-fi, and this isn't. And there's something, I feel like there's something to that.
Well, this is supernatural elements to it, though.
Right, but I think this is very subjective, what I'm going to say. But for some reason, I just think it works way better in sci-fi, this style,
okay,
than supernatural. And I'm not sure, I have to think about that for a while.
That might be personal taste, but...
yes, I think it might be.
I think you definitely can't make... it's difficult to justify doing a super surreal version of like a literal movie or a very grounded story. But yeah, I don't know.
This is supernatural, but it's not that supernatural. Like it's Satan, and it's witchcraft. And like a lot of the surreal moments are meant to convey everyday things. They're like giving us the impression of it. Like I keep struggling with the word, but I think impressionistic might be correct. So it does these elaborate surreal sequences to convey the idea of an orgy to us. Right. And
where a
I
man's
don't
dick
know.
turns into a giraffe.
Yeah, where a man's dick turns into a giraffe.
Two turtles are 69ing each other.
And stuff like that is like, okay, that's interesting, but like it's also drawn in a very basic way, that sequence.
Yes. Yeah.
Like it's
very,
drawn like,
very Notebook doodles.
Yeah, a lot of this is very Notebook doodles, which is also part of it where it's like when the art is good, it's like, ooh, that is good, but it's always kind of basic.
Right. It reminded me of, and I'm sure Rob Zombie probably drew inspiration from this, if not similar works, but it reminded me of a less good version of the Rob Zombie sequence from Beavis and Butthead Do America.
Yes. Yeah. And that's why it felt kind of lazy at times too. Because it's just like, it's little squiggle dicks. Like,
yeah, okay.
Right.
Like Rob Zombie did this way better. I mean, granted, it was 20 years later when he did it, but still, like, it's, I don't know. It feels very, we just keep coming back to it. It feels very basic for all of the cool things that it does.
Yeah, it feels like it has the luxury of being first.
Yeah.
Which there's something to be said about that.
Yeah, for sure.
Sure. But it's just now it's been since done way better and in more pretty or meaningful ways, ultimately. So, I really do think like, okay, so if this genre interests you and you want to see it for like its significance, do that. But it's not like, I don't know, Hausu, where it's like, wow, this is ahead of its time, you know? It's not that. Hausu rules. It's not that surreal nature where it's like, this is surreal for today's standards. It's very much quaint in how it's surreal, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top
meandering.
Yeah.
But not in a good way.
Yeah, and then combined with the fact that it just feels like it's not it's just kind of like told through some horny dude's lens, and so it just again it didn't, I wasn't impressed by this movie.
Overall no.
Yep. That's it. I'm sorry, Mind Freak. Freak.
No. I mean, I don't know.
I don't think.
I'm always open to watching things that I probably wouldn't have watched normally. So
yeah, I like movies.
I've seen this. I've absorbed it. I've thought about it. I've given it the benefit of the doubt. And now I'm going to move on with my life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I would say
can't recommend this movie. Can't recommend this movie.
I'm glad I saw it.
Yeah, you need to make that decision to watch it on your own. I'm not going to recommend this to anyone.
Yeah, as a fan of movies and this particular style, I'm glad I saw it.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
And it definitely gave me some insight into other things that I like.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, for sure.
In general, this is like when we watched Tommy, where I was just like, not into it.
Yeah, I like Tommy a little bit. I like Tommy more than this, obviously.
That's fair. I didn't. I didn't like Tommy. Where like it's just that feeling where it's like, you guys are high.
Oh yeah.
You guys are just high. And let me tell you, high people when you're not high, less profound.
Yeah. Kind of exhausting.
Kind of exhausting. Not nearly as
way less
as interesting
fun.
as
way
you
less
think.
Fun. Yeah.
Okay. I guess that's it.
I think that's it. I think we've done it.
I think we did it. I think we tore into this historic art film.
Sure.
That has, again, a lot of good reviews. Although I noticed even the good reviews, because it's the Rotten Tomatoes thing where, like, the way they do the math
it's
always makes
fail.
things.
It's, that's how Rotten Tomatoes works.
A lot of the reviews were still like, still, kind of sucks.
Yep.
Like for this reason or that.
Yep.
So I don't know. I don't think it's beloved or anything.
I don't know. I had never heard of it before.
Neither had I. Yeah. It's I don't know, man.
Yeah. I mean, I think we can be done, Dave, if you want to tell them some stuff.
All right. Yeah. So this was well, again, thanks Mind Freak. Thank you. Mind Freak 555
for broadening our horizons.
For doing this. Exactly. And this was through our Patreon, and if you're interested, you can go to patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. There's exclusive podcasts on there. For $5 a month, you get access to Tom and Jeff Watch Batman.
Woo!
Fox Mulder is a Maniac. We also do podcasts with our sister network, Small Beans. We do Spiel Boys, and we do Star Trek: The Next Futurama.
Pew, pew.
And so those are all available on there. For $10 a month, we watch movies with our patrons every Friday night. And then there's a bunch of other tiers, such as getting us to watch movies.
Yeah.
And then do episodes about them.
You can make us watch a movie.
Yeah. You can make us watch something fucked up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
We also have a store. Head over to gamefullyunemployed.com where you'll find a link to our Teespring store, where we have all kinds of cool original artwork and designs you can get on t-shirts, stickers, posters, all kinds of stuff. So check that out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Make that deal with Satan.
with Tiny Cock Satan, who will later become terrifyingly engorged. Yeah. Throbbing Cock Satan.
With,
I don't know.
Weird nerdy helmet hair. He had that is not the hair of Satan. I'm sorry. That is a hair of someone you bully.
Yeah. I mean, his head is a literal dick. I don't know what you want from him.
Yeah, he's got the dick head.
He just has a dick head. Yeah. So he's got kind of like a skullet.
Yeah, it's Dick Skullet Satan.
Yeah.
Check him out, folks.
All right.